checklist. One of my favorite books, one of my absolute favorite books is The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. Phenomenal book. And basically, he highlights the fact that pilots, surgeons have checklists. And you know, underwriters have checklists as well. And by the way, every one of these images looks a little funky because they were all created by AI. I said 35 millimeter wide angle cockpit view. That's what it gave me. 35 millimeter wide angle surgery room view. And that's what I got. It was kind of neat how that played out. So again, thank you, AI. But checklist. We don't have enough checklists in our life. In fact, I think we need a checklist of checklists. So again, this screen is a little bit of an eye chart, but the idea was really just to give you some thought starters on checklists. Prospecting calls, the opening call, right? Questions. I've shared that checklist with you. The checklist of documents required, your submission notes, underwriting checklist, all the different steps that need to happen, ordering up the appraisal, all the way through to setting up the file at the lawyers and the pre-funding checklist, the post-funding checklist. Okay, the client loves me. Have we added them to social media? Have we asked them for a Google review? E-blast topics. A checklist of e-blast topics is important just to keep you fresh. You know what, I'll leave that there for a second if you want to take a screenshot of it. There's a number of different checklists that we could be building and utilizing, and we should be utilizing. Because it doesn't matter whether a pilot has taken the plane off 1,000 times. It doesn't matter whether the surgeon has taken out 1,000 kidneys. They go through that same pre-flight, pre-op checklist every single time to make sure they haven't forgotten anything. In fact, I even have a travel checklist that I shared with Rob. I don't think we've posted the travel checklist yet. We could drop that one in the chat too. So I created a little travel checklist when I was traveling basically every single week, at least one flight, if not two, so that I would not forget to, and my passport is on that checklist, even on domestic flights. Because sure enough, I got caught at one point with an opportunity to go down to Grand Cayman to see a lifelong age-old friend, and I was in Toronto, and he was like, you should come down this weekend. And I was like, I would, but I don't have my passport, damn it. So even when I fly domestically now, I bring my passport, because hey, you never know. And I think actually traveling with your passport is how some really amazing stories probably unfold. I don't know, I went out for dinner in Toronto on a business night. Next thing I knew, I woke up in Malta with Rob at his grandma's house.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always travel with my passport too, because what happens if there's weather in Toronto, there's cancellations, but you gotta get home, and if you could just hop on this one flight to New York,
Denver,
whatever.
New York.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're stuck. Just take your passport.
Yeah. So checklist. I did use a checklist coming here, except I kind of failed. I stopped checking everything off it, and so I forgot dress shoes, but that's okay. I went shoe shopping and bought myself some new Vans because I just couldn't bring myself to buy another pair of old man dress shoes. I just wasn't doing it, so I bought myself some new kicks. So almost everything made it that was on the checklist, but so even when you have a checklist, like, are you using the checklist? That's the key. And are you asking yourself, as they say, like, what are the main chunks of my day, and can I build a checklist for myself to get through that segment? And obviously, the application intake, that was a pretty quality one, right? With all of those different questions on that opening call around income, down payment, additional property zone, timeline, etc. So I also have the Beast, which we don't have a version of to share right now. The Beast, you know, what am I tracking? When I was brokering, I started with this like 9-column spreadsheet that mushroomed into 79 columns. And I want to refine that and clean it up, and I'm going to actually put it back out there again, but it just wasn't quite ready for release into the wild again. But it really was a checklist. That's what it was. It was a checklist of, have I taken care of the referral partner? Have I thanked them? Have I sent them out their gift? Have I ordered the appraisal? There were all these boxes that I was shading along and watching the bar fill on every file. It was basically a massive file underwriting checklist. And again, however you're tracking these things, that's great, because who wins? People with a plan, right? That's who wins, people with a plan. And okay, people with tools might be the people who win, but really, is it people with the best tools? Or is it just people who actually use the tools they have? That's the key, right? Back to our buddy, Mr. Montague, right? Kicking ass with a rake, a shovel, and a bat on the golf course, taking tens of thousands of dollars a year back in the 1950s off golfers. Guy made more money than, it's unbelievable. So like I say, more Excel. I mean, these are just some screenshots, but this beast of an Excel sheet, which again, I'm gonna clean it up, modify it, and I'm gonna put a light version together, and I'll give you the full meal deal version. It allowed me and Angela, my most exceptional, amazing underwriter ever. I would never have been able to do what I did without Angela. So Angela, I don't know if you're still tuned in or not. I think you were tuning in today. Thank you so much. I'm glad you put the camera back on me. Thank you so much for putting up with me for a decade. That takes a lot. And for being the absolute, phenomenal human you are and phenomenal underwriter. And together, Angela and myself managed to knock out 239 files per year smoothly, using this spreadsheet as the basis of what was happening within the files. And Angela had a very similar version, but we did not share it in Google Docs. This comes up all the time. We didn't share the same sheet. So I couldn't see her sheet and she couldn't see my sheet. And what that forced was a daily call that I know Angela didn't love, because I got a little overly ridiculous with going through every single file in flight, which at some points there were 45 files in flight, going through every single file in flight, reviewing the status on it. But we both know that that was time well invested. Every single day, a half an hour of back and forth and going through the files and talking about the nuances of this and is it with the right lender? And little side things would come up. Actually, so-and-so, such and such a BDM just came in from this other lender, and, I think it could actually fit there. And the rate might be a little higher, but the amortization is like 10 years longer, and that would really, what would that make the payment look like? Let's do the math on that. Geez, you know what? That actually would work a lot better, because they're actually trying to qualify for another property after this. So even though the rate's higher, it gives them a lower payment, and it makes the next one work that we need to. Cool. That's the kind of stuff that would come up in those back and forth conversations. And by the way, way before the pandemic came along, Angela and I were working remotely from one another. That had a lot to do with the construction of the Port Mann Bridge in Vancouver at the time. It just made the commute insanely wasteful. So Angela started to work from home, and we just never went back. It worked great. And like I say, Excel is a pretty phenomenal tool if you leverage it properly, and it is a checklist. That really is what it is, and that one, I'll share that one in the future with you. Travel, I mentioned that one, the dollars per hour, the one-page plan, the H&R Client Edition, the Referral Partner Excel sheet, the poster, the Realtor Call sheet. These are all tools we've shared one by one in the chat, and you will have a link in the next week or two to a vault of some kind. I'm not going to say Dropbox, a vault of some kind to access all these different documents, the 10 call a day sheet, application questions, letter of engagement, the redacted docs doc just for fun, the H&R Broker Edition, the one-page decision maker, and as I say, more to follow. There will absolutely be more to follow.